Alright guys, so we're almost done with our CRUD, our create, update, and delete for clients. We just have the update left. So we want to be able to go into details, click edit, take us to a form to edit the client's info and save it. So that's what we're going to do now. So let's go back to VS Code, and we're actually going to need a bunch of the stuff that's in client details. So I'm going to keep this open, but I'm going to create a new component in clients. So a new file called edit client.js. Okay, and then we're gonna just grab some stuff from client details. We're basically gonna need all this stuff. Yeah, let's grab all this. We don't need class names, but we'll grab everything else and paste that in. And then let's put in a class here. Just get rid of that. We already have that. And then we'll move the export default down to the bottom. So export default, edit client. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put the word edit in here because I just want to make sure that we can actually load this component. So let's go to app.js and let's bring in edit client. So I'll just copy add client down and we'll say edit client. Change this, and then we want to just create a route. So I'm going to just copy this down. So it'll be, the route will be client/edit/:id. Okay, because it needs a way to know which client to edit, and then the component we load is edit client. So let's save that, and now we should be able to go to details, click edit, and now we see the word edit. Good, so at least we know that this is loading. So let's go back to edit client, and I want to just fetch the data from Firestore before we put the form in. So for that, we're going to do kind of the same thing we did in client details. If we go to the bottom here, where we used Firestore Connect, we used Connect here. So yeah, we're going to be doing kind of the same thing. So we can actually let's grab the prop types too, and we'll go to edit client and we'll put that right here. We'll replace this. All right, we want to change this to edit client, and it's using the Firestore, so we'll leave the prop type, and then we're getting collection clients. Again, we're going to store as client because we're getting a single client. We're getting the ID from the URI from the router, and then inside connect we're using a little destructuring here for the state to get ordered, and then we're setting client to order.client, and then the first item in this array, which will be you'll just have an array of the one client, and then of course we need to change this to edit client because that's the name of this component, and then that should get it into the props. So this should get us this.props.client. All right, and just to check that, let's go to render and let's destructure and take out client from this dot props, and let's just do actually we can just put it right in here. We'll just say client dot name. Actually, we're gonna have to check for the client first. So we'll take this and we'll put it up in here. So if the client comes in from Firebase, we'll return that. If not, then we'll return the spinner, which we brought in above. All right, so let's go to Chrome and let's see, we get the spinner. Oh, it's not, I put client.name, first name. There is no client.name. And there we go, Karen, good. So we know that we're actually fetching the client from Firebase. Now we can start to put together our form. So let's see, let's go to add client.js because we're basically using the same form here. So I'm going to grab from this div down to the last div. So the whole, basically all the markup that's inside of the return. I'm going to grab that from add client and I'm going to put that right here. So right here in the return, I'll put some parentheses and then we'll paste that in here. All right, now this is going to work a little different. The value is not going to be from the state like it was in the add client. The value I want to fill with the client that exists in props that we got from Firestore. Now, if we just use value equals this dot props dot client dot, or in this case, we already took client out of props up here using destructuring. But if I say client dot first name here, it's going to be, it's a controlled component, so I'm not going to be able to edit it. So let me just show you what happens if I go and I just change all these to client dot last name and client dot email for the value, client dot phone, and client dot balance. Now remember, client isn't in the state, it's in the props, so I'm not even going to have an on change. So we want to get rid of these on changes because we're not setting the state like we were in the add client when we didn't have an actual value, a predefined value. All right, so let's do that. And up here, that's all fine. Let's just change this text to edit client. All right, so let's save this and see what we get. So you can see we have the form and it's getting filled, but if I go and I try to edit, I can't type in it because it's a controlled component. This is supposed to be linked to state if we use a value attribute. Let's see, what is this? Yeah, so this is basically telling us that it doesn't have an on change handler and we're trying to set the value. So a way to work around this is, instead of using value, is to use default value. So we're going to say default value for these. So I'm going to just grab that and replace all of these. I'll just do a Control D, choose that and that. Yeah, and then we'll just say default value. Okay. Make sure you don't change the button, but everything else will change from value to default value. Now let's go back and let's see. No, I still can't. Default value will render a read-only field. If the field should be mutable, use default value. I did do that. Did I miss one maybe? Yes, I did. The first one, client first name, I missed. Okay, so default value. Let's go back. And now I can edit it. Okay, but again, it's not, these aren't connected to state anymore, so we can't just submit and say, you know, submit the client from the state. So what we have to do is we have to use refs. So we have to assign each input. So we'll start with the first name here, and we want to assign a property called ref. Okay, and we're going to set this to this dot first name input. Okay, I could call this whatever I want, but I'm going to call it first name input. And then we're going to do this to the rest of these as well. So this one here, but this will obviously be last name input. And then this one here will be email input, phone input, and balance input. All right, so now that we have these refs, just doing that isn't enough. We actually have to go up top and we have to create a constructor. So above the render, we're going to have a constructor, and constructor will take in any props. And then we need to call super, which calls the parent component's constructor, which is the React, the core component. And then what we want to do is create our refs. So we have to say this dot first name input, which is what we assigned to that ref attribute, and we have to set it to react dot create ref. Okay, parentheses. So I'm going to just copy this down, and we want to do this for all of them. So we'll do last name input, email input, and this one will be what? Phone input, and then balance input. That way we're creating a ref for all of our inputs. And then what we want to do is go to our form, and we already have it set to this dot on submit. So let's create that function. So let's say on submit, set that to an arrow, and then since it's a form that's being submitted, we want to do e dot prevent default, and then we're going to take out from the props, we're going to get the client, and we also want Firestore. Okay, Firestore has all those methods: add, update, remove, all that stuff, and we're going to take that out of the props. All right, now what we want to do is we want to construct the updated client. So we'll say updated client, we'll say const, we'll call it upd client, set it to an object, and let's set the first name. This is what's going to be submitted to Firestore. So first name we want to get from the input. Now since it's a ref called first name input, we can set it to this dot first name input dot current dot value, and that will give us the value that's typed in. So we want to do this for all of these. So let's copy this down. So we have first name, last name, and the form is pre-filled, so if we don't touch a field, it's just going to resubmit what's already there. So that's what we want. So we'll set this to this dot last name, and then this one will be email, which will be this dot email input dot current dot value. Then we have phone, this dot phone input, and then we have balance. Now remember, with balance, if it's empty, we want it to get submitted as a 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a conditional here using a ternary operator. I'm going to say this dot balance input, which is whatever is going to be submitted, whatever's typed in. Well, actually, dot current dot value is whatever's typed in, and I'm going to say if this is equal to an empty string, then make it a 0, else make it whatever is there. So this dot balance input dot current dot value. Okay, instead of doing like an if statement up here or whatever, we can shorten it, clean it up, and just put a ternary in here. All right, so now that we have the updated client that gets submitted, what we want to do is update it in Firestore. So update client in Firestore. So we take Firestore, which is available through the props, and we call dot update. And in here it takes in the collection, which is going to be clients, and then the doc. Okay, it needs to know which one to update. That's available in client.id from the props. And then the second parameter is going to be the updated client that we submit. Okay, so we'll go like that. And then we can get a dot then, because it's a promise that it returns. And we can say, let's take history out of props. So history, and then we can simply do, we can do history dot push, and we want to redirect to the dashboard. All right, so we'll save that. Prettier just kind of cleans it up a little bit, and that should do it. So let's try it. So let's go to our dashboard. Let's go to John Doe, and let's go to edit, and let's change his name to Jeff Doe. and then we'll change his email to, let's say, Jeff@gmail. We'll change his balance to 300 and submit. And there we go, Jeff Doe, Jeff@gmail, 300. So we can now edit our clients. And the balance up here, the total owed, also gets updated. Good. So we have full CRUD functionality. So now what we want to do is start to look at authentication, because right now anyone can come to this application and do whatever they want. They can add clients, delete, change balances, change information. So we need a way to authenticate. And we already have a user in Firebase. So now it's just a matter of bringing that functionality into our app. So that's what we're going to start on next.